Hello, folks. This is Who Did You Boycott today. I'm starting my second recording. I'm getting ready to go to sleep for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to get back up and see how I feel. But I intend to be dedicated to exposing these hand-picked stool pigeons that are running around here telling their people to go vote for this corrupt government and this voting process, when the only thing they should be saying out their mouth 24 hours a day is that if you don't deliver 4 or 5 demands, then you can roll the dice and pray to God that enough folks come out and vote. And you ones who are campaigning for these parties, these politicians, whether you are campaigning for the Republicans, the Democrats, the Independent, the Green Party, and everybody in between, if you are not sending them a clear message that they have before June, no later than August, to deliver 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 demands. If they don't deliver those demands by those deadlines, they can roll the dice. And each one of you brain dead persons who are campaigning for them can roll the dice too and get on your knees and pray to God that enough folks come out to vote. I don't think they are. I'm willing to bet my life on it that enough grandmothers and grandfathers are not going to go to that voting booth and pass this and inherit this on to their grandkids. They're just not going to do it because they probably feel like I do, that we as elders, we have 50 years of data to reflect on where we went wrong. We got 50 years. We're not like you folks who are in your 20s and 30s and 40s. You still need to gather that data. But us elders, we got 50 years of data that is a constant reminder on our conscience. What we did not understand when we was 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, we understand now. We clearly understand that because the good Lord kept us here long enough to make that evaluation. And I just don't believe grandmothers and grandfathers are going to walk into that booth and pass this harm down to their grandkids. I don't believe that with a clear conscience, that they are going to do that. So Mr. Disruptor and Mark Carter and any of you folks, it's Damon Jones, a.k.a. Clarence Thomas, Black Chicago for Trump, Mr. Cummins, and whoever that other person name, I just cannot seem to remember, Coffee. You folks are going to receive your just due for manipulating your community. Each and every one of you are going to receive your just due for manipulating your community the way you are doing it. When you clearly have the intelligence and the reach of an audience to clearly ask your community to send one clear message to your enemy and your opposition, that if they don't deliver 2, 3, 4, or 5, at least 2 demands before the election, you have already talked to your community and they are on the same page with each other, that they want you to roll the dice. And you just hold your breath on election night results. Just hold your breath and pray to God that you don't kill over. I'm voting for the kill over. I want you to hold your breath and just kill over. I don't need to stutter on that one. Or you can roll the dice and pray to God that enough folks came out to vote. You got a few options there. But if you got a brain in your head and you can summon up a come to Jesus moment, you would drop to your knees and pay that debt that's owed to the Negro ancestors and their descendants. The same way you sat down and signed the executive order for the Asians, the Latinos and Mexicans, the LGBTQ, and the Native Americans, in the same way you passed a bill for the Ukraine, the Palestinians, and Israel, and everybody in between, it's the same way you sit back down with that pen in your hand and sign that executive order for the Negroes to receive their justice. If that doesn't happen, I got my trust in my Heavenly Father that each and every one of you are going to get your just reward. That is who I'm putting my faith in. I'm not putting my faith in no Trump, no Republican, no Democrat, no Independent, no Green Party, no nothing but my Heavenly Father and my own common sense. That is where I'm putting my faith in. That is who I will put my faith in until the day I die. You folks are having a good old time misleading your community and lying to them flat-faced, but you will, before you leave this world, you are going to receive your just due. We all get that just due while we're here. None of us escape it. Each and every one of us experience that just due over and over during our lifetime. We don't know if it's going to be the next hour, the next day, or next week, or next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but it's coming. As sure as our name is on our birth certificate, that just due is coming at your door. It's going to knock at your door. You may not want to answer it, but it's going to keep right on knocking until it smacks you smack dab in the face. So you folks, stay tuned, because I'm going to keep you on blast. I intend to open this broadcast regularly. I'm not going nowhere unless the good Lord takes me off this earth, and unless my health goes bad, I'm going to make it a point to do these broadcasts regularly, and pray to God that these broadcasts reach the masses and they can make their own critical thinking, their own logical thinking, and think for themselves, because they know their well-being better than anyone else. They don't need to listen to you, Mr. Disruptor, Mr. Mark Carter, Lady Black Chicago for Trump, and whoever you got out there in Chicago who has a organization called Niggers for Trump, all of you too. And Mr. Cummins, Dame AKA, who is pretending to be a reverend, a preacher. But see, Damon Jones, newsflash, those of us who have read the Bible have already been warned about you folks who come in sheep clothing. Did you read that in the Bible? You talked about Bible study. You had to have read that part in the Bible. Damon Jones, Clarence Thomas. It's so ironic that you have the same name as Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, because you both cut from the same cloth. Both of you are cut from the same cloth. It's not by accident that you end up with the same name. That was a way for God to warn us about both of you. That was God's way of warning us about both of you with that name, Clarence Thomas. Just so you know. You don't know what's going to trip you up, what you're going to say or do, or something about your character that sent up that red flag. It can be as simple as a name. As simple as a name. That could be the red flag that sink you. And you didn't even see it coming. You didn't even see it coming. You just thought you was going to have smooth sailing. Just completely smooth sailing all the way to the finish line with whatever your ill intentions were. But you had no way of knowing what God had in store for you to trip you up. You had no way of knowing what God had in store for you to trip you up. So stay tuned, folks. Folks, we have to send a message to our enemy and our opposition that the Negroes need Special Field Order 15. If they will not deliver Special Field Order 15, then they need to deliver land grants of 40 acres and a mule before the election, along with IRS cash payments before the election. Those are two simple demands. Very simple demands. So they shouldn't have a problem delivering them if they really want you to come out and vote. If they really want you to come out and vote, then they should deliver those two demands. Because the Negroes are in a dire state, and we don't have time to play this corrupt game with these crooked people. And anyone that's telling you that has not sat down and did their own critical evaluation to understand that Negroes don't have time to play this corrupt game any longer. Negroes have played this corrupt game of voting and politics for over 50 years. Over 50 years, Negroes' bloodline has played this corrupt game of politics and voting with these evil people. That's long enough. That's long enough. So every penny and nickel and dime that we can save up to buy land, to invest in the Negro and melanated communities, business, infrastructure, to build trade schools, to build schools for our kids from kindergarten to 12th grade, and to invest in Negroes' businesses. That should be our focus. That's where our money should be going. Not for no protests on April the 15th. Not for no protests in Chicago on the 19th, 20th, and 21st. No, that is not where our money should be going. That is not where the Negro money should be going. Now, if all these other folks who feel too offended to go by Negro, they choose to want to go by these other terms, or all these other melanated persons, if they want to go over that cliff, then wave goodbye to them on their way down. But the Negroes need to summon the courage to stand on what their ancestors fought and died for so that they could have a better life. That is what the Negro bloodline need to do, because that is what's inside of each one of us. Our ancestors passed that down to each one of us. And for these folks who keep running around here, changing up these terms as they're speaking, God hear you every time you do it. In one breath, you're a Negro. In the next few minutes, you're Blk American. In the next breath, you are a a Negro freeman. In the next few breaths, you are African American. In the next few breaths, you are FBA. In the next few breaths, you are B1. In the next few breaths, you are ADOS. Those are not God's people. Those other words that I just said out my mouth are not God's people. The only people who are God's people are Negroes. So you folks have not just only removed yourself from this landmass and placed yourself on the African continent. God hear you every time you say those other words out your mouth. You are claiming your identity. And don't think that God is going to let you back in. Don't think that God is going to let you back in. That you're going to have the ability to wake up and decide, I want to be a Negro now. No, God is listening to every one of us. And God has heard every time you have chosen to use these other terms after you have been told the correct facts. Now, what happened before you were told those correct facts, God is not going to hold that against you. But God is certainly going to hold it against you that you are choosing to identify with these other terms. And it's nowhere in the Bible that describes any of these other terms that they are God's people. The only persons who are described in the Bible that are God's people are the Negro ancestors and their descendants. That's clearly spelled out in the Bible. So for any of you who have been rebellious against reading the Bible, I would advise you to go read it because there's a lot of truth in there. It's a lot of lies. But there's a whole lot of truth in there too. That's why they hid it in there. That's why the evildoers hid it in the Bible because they figured you would never pick it up. They figured the Negroes would never pick the Bible up, so it was safely hidden away. Oh, they miscalculated. They miscalculated. Yes, they did. They miscalculated. And each of you folks who are too good to identify as a Negro, God got your just reward waiting on you too. God has your just reward waiting on you. You folks who felt that Negro was outdated, Negro was offensive, God has your just reward waiting on you. Yes, he does. I don't know what else to tell you. I really don't know what else I can tell you. But that's the whole cold reality. Yes, it is. So I hope folks can let that marinate. That's what you need to do. You need to have a sit down with yourself and let it marinate. I hope you'll come to a better understanding for your well-being. No one can make that decision for you but yourself. You know what's best for your well-being better than anyone else. So take whatever amount of time you need to come to that conclusion. What is best for your well-being? For your well-being, for your day-to-day life. That's your personal choice to make. And you can listen to these brain-dead persons who are telling you to commit suicide and go over the cliff. Or you can think for yourself. You can think for yourself and come to your own conclusion. But one thing you can't avoid is that you do not have Bank of America type of money. You do not have JP Morgan type of money. You do not have Chase Bank type of money. You do not have Wells Fargo type of money. And if you know you do not have that kind of money, then you can come to the your own conclusion that your vote does not count. It simply does not count because the banks and the corporations own these politicians. And there's nothing I can do about it or you can do about it. It's just accepting that reality and that fact. And then sitting back and evaluating what can you do to improve your financial security and your mental and physical stability and protection around yourself each and every day, because that's just a hostile environment that I was born into. I didn't have a vote. I didn't get a vote. I was born into that hostile environment. So I've spent the 61 years of my life trying to figure out how to navigate it. So I'm gonna get back to playing this, putting this 9-minute and 20-second video clip that has no volume. It's just gonna play over and over until I wake back up. I don't know when that's gonna be. It could be in the next 2 hours. It could be in the next 4 hours. I don't sleep very well anymore. So whenever I get up again, I'll go back live again and start maybe coming on the microphone. But right now I'm getting ready to start this video clip. It don't have any audio to it, and it will play until I wake back up, because my body has to get some sleep. I've been up for over 24 hours. Yes, Lord. And so I'm going to take a little rest, and then I'm going to get back up and get back at it. Yes, Lord. Here we go. folks have completely forgot about your number one priority, reparation. They have convinced you to care about their interests more than your own interests. They playing you like a fiddle, a complete fiddle. And I pray to God that those persons out there who have a backbone, who have courage, will demand something for their vote before they go in there and vote. Those are the persons who are brave. Those are the persons who have courage. Those are the persons who have a backbone. Not you weak persons who just running around here telling folks you looking forward to voting for your enemy. You are looking forward to voting for your enemy when you clearly know the oligarchies own the government. Oligarchy. They have owned the government for the past 40 years. So your vote has been erased the past 40 years. That is what is the fact. That is the reality. Not these lying narratives that you folks are running around here telling people they have to go vote like their life depends on it because they just got to fight against this invasion. But the oligarchies own the government. They own the government. They own it. Their wealth and power own the government. So your vote on the 5th of November is not going to change that. On the 6th of November is not going to change that. On the 7th of November is not going to change that. On the 8th of November is not going to change that. On the 9th of November is not going to change that. On the 10th of November is not going to change that. But what can change your fate is to demand something for your vote up front. That is what's going to change your fate. And that puts the power in your hands as an individual and as a collective. But if you're not doing that, your enemy already know that you are weak. Because any brain sense person will be making a demand. Your enemy has already evaluated you, that you simply are not even making a demand, and they know how desperately they need your vote. If they don't hear you making a demand, they already have made an evaluation that you are weak. Because common sense tells them those Negroes and melanated persons should be making a demand for their vote, and not it depending on immigration. That's the America's problem that they have used as a weapon to harm you. You don't fight against your enemy with the weapon that they use to harm you. You don't help them with their problem from the weapon they use to harm you. No, you step back and regroup and figure out what is your power position. What is that power position that you hold? If you don't have enough brain cells to figure that out, then don't do harm to your community and yourself. Don't take the liberty to do harm to your community by telling your community to go vote for the lesser of two evils, because that is a cop-out. That is a cop-out, and it's a false narrative. It's a false narrative that has need to be put to rest. It need to be buried. It has been the narrative for the past 50 years. The past 50 years. So it has been in existence long enough. It's time out for it to be put to rest. It needs to be buried forever and ever. So you sorry human beings who are running around here asking folks to vote for the lesser of two evils, you are compromised. You are compromised, and no one should listen to anything coming out your mouth. Because if you are not demanding land and cash before your vote, then you are compromised. If you don't have a strategy of how you're going to tear down the oligarchy, then you are lying to yourself and your people. If you're not explaining how you plan to tear down the oligarchy, the banks and the corporations and the Black Rocks and the Rockefellers and the cartels, if you don't have a strategy of how you are going to tear down that system of 40 years, if you don't have a plan or a strategy of how you plan to tear that down piece by piece that has been in existence for 40 years, that has erased your vote for 40 years, then you are lying to yourself and you are lying to your people. And time will tell. My faith is in the Heavenly Father, not in any of you lying human beings. I don't think all the praying in the world is going to get persons in the ghetto, in the projects, in the hood to come out to vote. 80 million stayed home in 2020. I estimate that about 160 million will stay home in 2024. Unless they get some land and some cash, and they'll be able to evaluate for themselves whether their life, day-to-day life has changed and that they can be motivated to go vote. If that doesn't happen, y'all corrupt human beings are going to keep on doing your evil deeds. You folks are going to keep on fighting each other. You are going to keep right on fighting each other. That's what you're going to do. You're just going to keep right on fighting each other. And while you're fighting each other, you're going to be cutting those government programs. You're going to be cutting those government programs and making sure that you protect the corporations and the bank. And you're going to make sure they keep on getting bailouts and keep on getting social welfare and keep on getting subsidized favoritism. You're going to make sure that all of that stays in place. I have already posted the links in the, oh my gosh, let me see. Yeah, when I set up this broadcast, I put in the description all the links that you need to click on to learn about the truth. Just click on each of those links and go spend a little bit of time reading about how the Republicans and the Democrats are cutting government programs effectively, immediately, as quickly as they can put them into effect. So by the time you folks are done crying for these Republicans and Democrats, many persons in the Negro community and the melanated community are going to have died, because a human being dies when they cannot buy food and they cannot pay for a roof over their head. They cannot get a job. They are going to die. While y'all are busy fighting each other, they are going to die. Because I'm sure each one of you folks who are running around here caping for these Republicans and Democrats, you have a refrigerator full of food. You have a comfortable roof over your head. Yes, you do, don't you? You are sporting your nice shoes and nice clothes and outfits and your nice cars and your nice houses, and you're talking about your nonprofit organizations, and you're talking about your government contracts, and you're talking about your business or whatever that you got going on, but your life is not feeling the pain the same way those persons who are in the 50% bracket, 40% bracket, 30% bracket, 20% bracket, 10% bracket. Your life is not feeling the pain of those persons who are working poor. They work 2 jobs, but they're still poor and a low income. So if you folks have any compassion or decency, I want you to go year by year for the past 40 years. Go year by year and do your research for the past 40 years and get a sheet of paper or a notepad and have a column for the low income and a column for the elite and the wealthy, those who are above 50%, and dots of who has received the most welfare from the government. I want you to identify what amount of money that each one of those columns have received for the past 40 years. And I'm willing to bet my life on it that the column that has the elite and the wealthy, they will out total the ones in the column for the low income. I'm willing to bet my life on it. While y'all running around here crying for these Republicans and Democrats, they are busy cutting the government programs, and they just had a vote. I think it was in September, or it might have been more recent. I think it was September of 2023. We are just in February of 2024. So if you go do your research, you can read all the facts for yourself. But in case you don't plan to read all the facts, I intend to do some broadcasts on it. I most certainly do. I intend to do some broadcasts on each one of those government cuts. And especially the one where the wealthy and the elite, those in the bracket above 50%, who is getting ready to get a $3.1 trillion reward, while the folks in the low income are going to suffer cuts. These evil human beings made sure to pay the wealthy and the elites $3.1 trillion. I mean, what would it hurt if they just would have paid them $1.1 trillion and left some money over there in the column for the low income? What would have been wrong with that? What harm would that have done? They still would have got a little bit more extra money. They still would have got a little bit more extra money. They didn't need the whole $3-point-something trillion, while all of these other government programs are being cut. So I'm going to close with this. Because I have to go run my errands. And when I come back from running my errands, I am more than likely going to do another broadcast. I'm going to probably have to do another one today. But in closing, any person who is telling you to go vote, any person who, like Phenon in the Caucasian space, the sorry human being who says that I don't want my kids to be birthed into debt, the sorry human being who said reparations is welfare, that is a lying narrative. So the next time they say it out their mouth, just remind them that each one of them that has come to America after 1865, they have been receiving welfare. Each one of them. Just so we have a story straight. Every single immigrant that got here after 1865 has been receiving welfare. Every one of them have been receiving welfare, including every Caucasian American, because I do not call these sorry human beings WHITE. I have abolished that word. That was the purpose of this broadcast, to let it be known that this sorry human being by the name of April Showers was trying to steal message. I had to send her a clear message. That, see how faith works? I just happened to pop into the room at the perfect time to hear you stealing my message. April Shower. I happened to pop in there at just the right time to hear you stealing my message. So I stopped in my tracks and made a broadcast, because you and Mark King Carter, he stole some of my message. I heard him in the past few weeks, along with Coach, and along with Black Chicago for Trump, Miss Gazelle. It's so many of you, I can't name all of you folks. You think I don't recognize my own narrative, my own message, my own talking point? Do y'all really think I'm senile, that I cannot recognize my own talking points? I mean, I was the originator of the message. So I kind of, to recognize my own original message is quite simple. But in closing, the next sorry human being that tell you to go vote and not get something for your vote up front, they are compromised. Each one of them are compromised. If they're not asking you to demand land and cash for your boat, then they are compromised, because that debt is owed to the Negro descendants for their Negro ancestors' justice claim. That is the only priority that any human being who is a Negro or melanated person should be thinking about. That's the only priority, because if you get that land and that cash, you're not going to have to lose any sleep over immigration anymore. You're not going to have to lose any sleep over redlining. You're not going to have to lose any sleep if you don't get a government contract. You're not going to have to lose any sleep over getting turned down for a loan. You're not going to have to lose any sleep about sending your kids to their public schools. So if these sorry human beings are not demanding those two things, now you can always change your mind the day before the last voting day, but your clear message should clearly be, I want these two demands if you want my vote. That's a fair transaction. That's a fair transaction. If you don't want to deliver that, then you'll know where you stand. You won't have to guess. You won't have to make an assumption. You won't have to pray that they do something for you. You won't have to pray. You won't have to march. You won't have to protest. You will know clearly, crystal clear, where you stand. And you can take your pennies and nickels and dimes and put them in a cookie jar and buy land. And you can invest in your own self, in your community, to create jobs for your own community. Excuse me. And Miss Fionn, she should be famous for her saying, we need to cut the government. We need less government in our business. We need less government in our business. But when you hear them say those words, that's a code word. That's a code word for they want to make sure that the folks in the bottom 50%, they get all those government programs get cut for those persons who need that safety net. They're not talking about cutting the government military. They're not talking about cutting the banks and the corporations' social welfare. They're not talking about cutting the banks and the corporations' bailouts. They're not talking about cutting the banks and the corporations subsidize. They're not talking about any of that when they sitting in these Twitter spaces and on these social media platforms saying we need small government, we need the government out of our business. Talking about that, they're using a code word. They want your demise. That is what they're talking about. If you happen to be in the 50% in the 50% bracket, anything below the 50% bracket, that's the code word for your demise. They can't say it they can't really tell you in clear language, so they have to use these code words. The code word is that we need less government. We need to make sure the government is out of our affairs. While they're getting tax cuts, the one that Trump gave them from 35% down to 21%, and the bailouts that Obama gave to the banks and the corporations. I think it was the banks and the corporation. They're not talking about those folks when they're telling you that they want smaller government. No, they're not talking about that. They're talking about your demise. The demise, they want your demise like the one they just passed recently, either in September of 2023 or more recently. It was a vote in the Congress by the Republicans and the Democrats to cut 30% of government programs. And they also cut the government programs back in 2017 or 2018. They really wanted to cut the government programs at that time at 38%. They are always chipping away at these government programs. They did a cut of 16 to 18% back in 2017, 2018. So those cuts have already taken effect, just so you don't, if you didn't know. Those persons in the Negro and the melanated community are already suffering for the past 6 months, year or more. They have already started feeling the pain of those 16 to 18% cuts. But now the Republicans and the Democrats didn't feel like that was good enough. They made a little cry, said we had to pass this bill because we didn't want the government to shut down. So we just had to vote on it. We just had to pass it. So they went home and slept like a baby after making 30% cuts to government programs. They went home and slept like a baby. That's what they did. So I intend to put them on blast. I intend to put them on blast. And if you look at my room title in the Twitter hallway, the one that will stay up when I go run my errands, the folks in North Carolina, they seem to be waking up. They have started a poor people's campaign. Go search for it on Google. These folks are mad. And they make up the largest voting electorate. So if those persons decide to re-engage, it's going to not look pretty. It is not going to look pretty. Shout out to my home state, North Carolina. I know we cut from the right cloth. It's not ironic. I am the way I am. I'm born and breeded for North Carolina. That's the type of air that we breathe growing up from birth. But we believe in speaking our mind. We believe in standing up for things that we believe in and we're willing to fight and die for. We ain't like you sorry, weak backbone persons who cape for the wealthy and the elite, those in the bracket that's above 50%. You don't care about those minimum wage workers. You don't care about those low income persons. You don't care about those working poor persons who work two jobs and are still poor. No, you don't care about them. All you care about is you get your tax cuts and that you get your candidate elected. This is not rocket science. This should have been figured out decades ago. Honest persons should have been given the opportunity to figure this out a long time ago. A fair way to make the tax cuts fair across the board for everyone. That's not hard to figure out. I can figure that out myself, and I'm not the smartest person. I know good enough I can figure that out because I have always understood I'm a problem solver. At least that's what I have devoted my life to, understanding that whenever I got a problem, okay, I can identify the problem and then what's the solution. That's my thought process. I'm not tearing. I'm not dragging my feet. The first time that I identify that I have a problem, the next thought that I'm formulating is, Alkaline, what is the solution for your problem? So all these intelligent folks who got these college degrees, who have common sense, they know good and darn well that this should have been figured out a long time ago. It should have been figured out a long time ago. But you know what prevented that? Greed, evil, and corruption. That's what prevented it from being figured out. Because of greed, evil, and corruption. That's why it didn't get figured out. So now, who is paying the price? The low income. Those who make minimum wage, they paying the price. They are having to pay the price. While the oligarchies get away with murder for 40 years, they are having to pay the price. While the wealthy banks and corporations get away with murder for the past 40 years, they have gotten away with murder for the past 40 years. And I accept my part of the responsibility because I lied to myself for 30 years. I lied to other persons for 30 years when I told them out my mouth they should go vote. I can own up to that. I can accept accountability for that. Aquilin, you can accept accountability for every time you encourage another person to go vote in this corrupt system. Aquilin, you have a responsibility to take accountability for telling another person to go vote in this corrupt system because you were not educated enough to know that you were participating in a corrupt system. I can admit that to myself, and I have to have that on my conscience for the rest of my days. But I don't have to keep lying to myself. I don't have to keep lying to other persons. That I don't have to do. I can accept accountability for 30 years of lying, and lying to myself and to anyone else that I encourage to go vote. I can do that. I can do that with a clear conscience. And that is what I intend to do. That is what I do. So y'all folks, enjoy your day. Keep safe and out of harm's way. I shall return. Take it easy.